you know, they lowered their future guidance, but then also trying to weigh in that, Amazon is kicking their tail too, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so it's a little bit of everything. Um, but yeah, man, and just trying to bring it all to what does the average person do with all this information, um, to try to win, or at least not lose.
Yeah,
So
that was gonna be my question for you. Like, I mean, we see, and that's the problem with a lot of this is like, you had these talking heads and people come on here and say these things, but you never really know like what to do with the information, and that's one of the things that we're gonna talk about today. Are you able to
right.
adjust your camera?
Yeah,
Because
what do you want me to do?
it got you kind of like real low. You look real short. I know it got
Is
you
that
real.
better?
Yeah, that's better. That's better.
Okay,
So if you can pull it down, that'll be dope.
there we go.
But yeah, man. So we're gonna get into this conversation today. We're gonna talk about um today. So it's our Ask a Millionaire show, right? So
Okay.
I'm gonna give Steven Stack. If you guys aren't familiar with Steven, you need to be. We just shot a podcast last week, so you can go learn a lot more about him there. But I'm gonna give him the floor to just introduce yourself, and talk about some of the things that you have going on, and we're gonna jump straight into the show.
Yeah. Well, first, man, always great to be here with you. My name is Steven Stack. I do financial consulting and coaching, trying to help people build wealth, but not just the money, but building holistically. So just thinking about, in every way. That's the way I try to look at things. And I practice what I preach, you could say, in that I made my first million at age 31. So I always like to say I got a PhD in the school of hard knocks of actually living this thing out. So I know what it looks like to build wealth. I know what it looks like to have to pay off debt and be 100% debt free. So I just like to speak to people, from my personal experience, as well as stuff that I read and studied and been able to grow and build on too.
Yeah, and I think you got a really unique story. So a lot of times when people talking about building wealth, they think they got to quit their job and start some tech business or start some business that they're going to sell. Could you just give people like kind of a brief overview of your path to millionaire status? Because I think, especially in the times that we're in now, it can be inspirational for a lot of people, because your path is a lot more conventional than going out and starting the next Facebook.
Yeah, yeah. So for me, I had studied engineering when I was in college and took a role in the engineering field. And what I did is I said, okay, I've got a pretty strong income that I'm starting off with, but I also knew that I had just come from my nicest piece of furniture being a futon, literally, in the apartment that I stayed in when I was in school. So I'm like, okay, man, I don't really need a lot of super fancy stuff. I did spend good money on a mattress, which, by the way, I'm gonna just give y'all just a couple quick gems. This is something my dad had actually taught me. He said, spend extra money on the things that separate you from the ground.
Mm.
And those two things in particular are your mattress or your bed and the shoes that you wear. That'll help you, as far as just taking care of your body and things like that. So I did have a nice mattress that I bought, but outside of that, man, I had like the standard kind of bachelor pad looking setup, super basic, and made a decision that, hey, I wanted to invest at least 50% of my income using, work corporate income. I wanted to take at least 50% of it and invest it aggressively. And this was literally coming out of the Great Recession. So timeline wise, this would have been in that '08, '09 time frame when I was aggressively investing from the start.
Yeah, and I think investing is really really important. And but what a lot of people miss with the investment piece is you got to have a strong income, right? You can't just start investing $10 and think that you're going to be able to become financially free. So I think step one for a lot of us is to make sure you have that stable income. And that just kind of goes straight into what we're talking about today with the economy and things like that. So if you guys aren't familiar with the CEO of FedEx, he went on CNBC and basically said that the Federal Reserve, which is Jay Powell, is basically, in so many words, it isn't telling the truth. He isn't telling the truth because he is in a position that if he come out and say that we're in a global recession, a lot of investors and CEOs would stop hiring. They will freeze assets. They'll freeze hire. They'll freeze everything, right? Which would really throw us into a terrible recession, right? I don't know if it's going to go 08, 09, but it could get there. And so he's being very, very careful with his wordplay. And the CEO of FedEx came out, who has a lot of data because FedEx is one of the largest, if not the largest, um, delivery delivery company. So consumer goods, business goods, they know, they got all of the data and they know a recession when they see one, right? So what is your thoughts when you hear Jay Powell and the Fed come out and say that because of the job numbers, we're doing we're doing okay, quote unquote. But then you look at all this other economic data that speaks to that, the consumer spending and things like that, Walmart, all these companies changing their guidance for the year because the consumer isn't in good shape like they say they are.
Yeah, so there's been, I mean, if you're just paying attention to the signs and just reading, you can see really where we are. Um, and the funny part is a lot of companies have already started doing hiring freezes, or they're slowing their hiring, or they've rescinded offers. And plus, there's plenty of companies that have already started laying people off. So I believe a lot of this stuff, it's already happening if folks are paying attention. So I'm just going to give just some things off the top of my head because I believe it's good to have data,
Yeah.
just so people, so they just don't hear us talking, that they can say, oh, okay, this is something I can go look up, that's tangible. So like for instance, Meta, or formerly known as Facebook, Salesforce, Netflix, they've already announced either hiring freezes or layoffs. A lot of people use a platform for investing called Robinhood, which back in April they laid off 9% of their workforce, then turned around last month and laid off another 23%, which
Yeah.
represented over 1,000 jobs. Um, Coinbase, for people who think about crypto, they froze hiring, then rescinded offers, then laid off 18% of their workforce. And for those that say, okay, well, those are some pretty big folks, but I don't know if that really matters. Microsoft, they slowed hiring for certain divisions of their company. I know, like within Microsoft Office, that's one of the areas that they've slowed hiring. And even let's take it to the small business side. So I'd seen a study that was done for small business owners tied to a platform called Fiverr, which is just a platform where
Yes.
people can hire folks to do like just quick freelance work, kind of on the cheap, um, to fill in the gaps. But I mean, just some of the stuff I've seen is startling. They did a study for over 1,000 small business owners, and 85% of the people in this study of these U.S. small businesses said they plan to implement a hiring freeze during the economic downturn. Um,
I
it's
think I
seven.
think
Oh, go
let,
ahead.
sorry to cut you off. Let's kind of
No,
break
good.
this down on why a hiring freeze for these large companies affects us. Because a lot of times people say, well, Facebook's laying off 10,000, or Snapchat laid off 20% of his workforce. What does that have to do with me? Well, when Snapchat lays off his workforce, that means you got all those people unemployed. So all of those people stop spending money. They stop
Mhm.
spending money on credit cards. They stop spending money, etc. So they stop spending money with small businesses. When they stop spending money with small businesses, that comes directly to your neighborhood. So they stop spending money at restaurants. They stop going to the mall. They stop watching a lot of these shows and stuff because now they got to get out and grind and hustle. So advertising dollars, it's a lot that trickles straight down to you. Interest rates started to go higher, so now it costs more to borrow money, stuff like that. So we're not just talking to talk when you talk
Right.
about the job markets, you're also talking about things that directly affects, you and I.
Yeah, I'm actually glad you jumped in and said that, because it made me think of something else. Of typically speaking, when you have one layoff for one of these high-paying tech jobs, it impacts about three regular jobs, like
Mm,
three people with regular gigs, because you got to think about the spending that they're not doing now that they're out of work. So a lot of times, like you said, when we're talking about this data and layoffs or hiring freezes and things like that, it may sound like, oh, well, what does that have to do with me? If you're not in, like tech, or or whatever these different industries may be, but it does matter. It does matter, and it does impact really everything.
Now I know you're a real estate investor. You do some investing in real estate. I'm a former mortgage banker. So I watch companies like Rocket Mortgage a lot because that's the company I used to work at. Um, Now I read something about their CEO, and he was talking about a lot of these mortgage companies, these mortgage startups, and things like that are going out of business. So that gives them, because they're a market leader, that gives them opportunity to go out and steal market share. But it also makes them look at their plan on investing in the market and these interest rates and things like that. So excuse me, what is your outlook on the real estate market now that interest rates have went from 2.8, 2.9, 3% to we're looking at 6.6%?
Yeah. So for those that don't understand, the gap between going from roughly 3% to 6% is massive. So to try to put that in perspective, it would mean that uh, buying a home that's over $700,000 when the interest rate was lower uh, would be cheaper than buying one for like 550,000, like
Right.
in the new environment. So I'm just trying to use just real numbers, even if you say that those home prices may not be in your budget. What you understand is that the interest rate being higher means people can afford less.
Yes.
They can't buy as much home, and we're also just seeing the impact just kind of across the whole sector when we start talking real estate. So one thing that I read that was pretty interesting, and this was oh gosh, I want to say it's a few weeks back, um, is that in the last 18 months, the average national rents has gone from $1,600 a month to $2,000 a month. Now,
Wow.
I don't want to assume people know the math here, so I'm gonna try to break this down. That's a 24% increase in rents in the last 18 months. But wages, the average hourly wage in the last 18 months has only gone up 8%.
Wow.
Right, right. So what that means is in the last roughly year and a half, the average rents have 3x, have tripled the average amount of increase that people are making more in wages, which the translation is that that is unsustainable because you've got rents going up like crazy, and then it's harder to buy a home because it's more expensive because the interest rates have gone
Yeah.
up to get them. So that is a recipe for for potential disaster, and I
Yeah.
hate to say it like that.
So the article that I was reading earlier, they basically talked about how the average home price. So the average home price have been going up. So I believe the average home price was around $330,000 in America, somewhere around there. The numbers, are debatable, but we're just going to use that number. So basically, what they said is, in order, when interest rates were 2.8%, all you need all you needed to make was $75,000 in order to afford that $300,000 home. Now, in order to afford that same home with interest rates at 6%, you need to make 110,000.
Mm,
So you need to make $30,000 to $40,000 more in order to afford the same home. Now, this is a good question by Inspiring Minds. She said, "My 401k is dropping heavy. What should I do?"
so I don't know precisely what you're in, and shoot, inspiring minds, if you know, it would be good to know what the percentage is when you say heavy, but I'll just answer it in general. The market has been coming down. So if you look at something like the S&P 500, which is, it's a stock market index, it's just a collection of the top 500 US publicly traded companies just all bundled together. So another visual way to think of it is, if you had, so I'm from the Southeast. So if you just had like a sweet potato pie, um, and you cut it up into 500 slices. Some slices are going to be bigger or smaller than others. So it's a weighted stock market index. So like Microsoft or Apple are going to be a bigger slice than Domino's Pizza or Waste Management. Um,
Mhm.
but in the whole, it's 500 companies put together. But year to date, the S&P 500 is down close to 20%. I'm trying to think. When I recently saw it, I want to say it was like 19.6, 19.7% is what it closed out at today. So, and that's, mind you, if you put the money in at the start of this year, that's the bleed down that you've seen. Um, so my encouragement to you, I don't know exactly what you're in, but assuming you're buying quality, I would encourage you to keep buying. Like, look at it as you're buying for the long haul. So the price is being down, you're getting a discount on, or another way to look as your dollar is going further than what it was before. Again, assuming you're buying quality. And by the way, we could see more pain in the market. I believe we've got a realistic chance of seeing a good bit more. And if so, keep buying. And you can use something just called dollar cost averaging, because you say you got a 401k. So it's probably just buying every time you get paid, whether it's every 2 weeks or twice a month. Um, and maybe you just don't have to look at it, if it unsettles you. Um, and just stay the course, because the big thing is, over time, when you start looking out 10 years from now, 20 years from now, you'll be thankful that you kept buying, I believe.
All right. Shout out to 6 Degrees of Separation for the $20 super chat. We really appreciate that. So you have a question here. Say, Steven Stack, what are you investing in during this downturn?
So I'm gonna lead you guys to water to figure out what to drink. Because here's the thing. My investing is going to look a little different because of the sheer amount of wealth that I have, my appetite for risk, just the way my portfolio is set up. But I will still give you some keys of things to look at. So I in general I do like index funds, so like broad, diversified things. Uh, but as far as like concentrated positions, so saying like possibly individual stocks or very sector specific ETFs, my mentality right now is I'm focused on buying businesses that actually make money. So where they generate true, real free cash flow. They actually have profit. Um, they have a strong balance sheet, so you can look at it and say, hey, they have more assets, meaning stuff that has positive value. They have more assets than they have liabilities. And so like even the way I want you to think about that, so that may sound fancy, but just think about a person, people that an individual. If you knew someone who you were going to invest in a person and they've got a ton of debt and hardly any assets going into bad times, man, that's a bad bet that you're taking, or that's you're taking on undue risk versus if you're investing. I put myself out there. So like if you're investing in someone like me who literally I don't have any liabilities and I've got a ton of assets, then I'm more likely to be able to weather the storm of this downturn. Like if I'm a company, I can tell you what I'm going to do when things are going down. I'm looking to acquire more in the midst of the downturn and the chaos. So that's the way I'm looking at these companies, is saying who's in a strong position that they'll be able to weather the storm of the downturn and possibly even take advantage and buy buy assets, possibly acquire other weaker companies and pull them into their own ecosystem to be able to build and come out even better once the good times come. So I'm just trying
So
to lead you to the water to drink.
so is it safe to say that you are staying away from growth stocks at the moment? So some of the companies um that might not, well, they're not necessarily they wasn't focused on making a profit. Like for example, let me give you an example, like
All
Snapchat,
right,
right?
man.
Snapchat, the reason they fired 20% of their workforce is because 20 to 30% of their workforce was focused on growth, right? So they artificial intelligence, um, um, what was that? Augmented reality,
Right,
those glasses that they were coming out with. All of that stuff ain't making them no money. It's costing them billions and billions of dollars. And then overnight, the Snapchat CEO, even Evan Spiegel, basically called a meeting and said, we're focused on being profitable during this downturn because that's the only way we're actually going to stay in business. And they cut 20% of the workforce because 20% of the workforce was focusing on growth instead of their core business. Their core business is the application we all know, Snapchat, the advertising business, things like that. So,
yeah,
are you staying away from those companies that are heavily, because I mean, all companies are focusing on growing, but
sure.
those companies that are 20, 30, 40% of their assets or their revenue is focused on reinvesting in growth, are you staying away from those type of companies?
Yeah, yeah. So let me address Snapchat real quick. Um, I Snapchat is down 76% year to date.
Mm,
So that means if you put $100 into Snapchat at the beginning of this year, now you got $24 left of that
mm.
100. That's horrible. And here's the wild part about it is I think they're still overvalued. As much as they've
Wow.
dropped, yes, sincerely, as much as they've dropped, I think they're still overvalued. They don't make any money. They don't have a competitive edge. I mean, think about what Snapchat is, and and they're not good at being able to generate ad revenue, which that's how they're supposed to make money. They're not good at it, and they have no edge in that space. So I wouldn't touch it with a 1,000-foot pole. Sorry to all the Snapchat workers that are left, but I'm just keeping it a buck. So yes, to your question, I would not, and I am not investing in companies such as that because the environment has changed. So let's just kind of give a lesson here. Is you had a lot of companies that they weren't really making money, but because money was flowing so freely, you had something called quantitative easing, which just think a money pump, like money was being injected into the system. And by the way, this quantitative easing has been going on since like 2007.
Mm.
But it went super crazy in 2020 to try to get us out of a horrible spot with the pandemic. But now the Federal Reserve, they've reversed course and they're doing something called quantitative tightening. So now they're taking money out of the system. So things are a little more dry, it's less liquid, like money isn't moving so freely, and so companies that used to not really make money, but they could just get money for cheap. So they could get cheap debt because the interest rates were really low. Well, now those interest
Right.
rates are high, and it's like, no, 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 you've got to actually be a good company that actually makes money. You know what I mean? To win in this space in the long haul, because you just got to be looking for more safety in your positions that you're looking to buy.
All right. Now, let's go back to the question about the 401k, because I think a lot of people are looking at their 401ks and they're down 30%, 40%, whatever they're down. Um, you only lose money in the stock market when you sell, right? You only lose money when you realize that loss, right? So what I don't want you guys to do is to panic and to just go out and liquidate all your assets at a loss and take that loss, which you should, especially with a 401k, because that is a long-term investment. So you should be thinking about, if you have any liquid money at the moment, you should be thinking about, what could you get in right now, what long-term investment you can get in right now and buy while the company is on sale. Because I think the stock market is the only place in real estate where when something goes on sale, people run from it. But if it was a Gucci shirt, if it was Louis Vuitton, right? We understand value when we looking at Louis Vuitton, Rolex, right? If
Right.
they run a sale, we're in there because we understand value of their quality product. And when it's low, if a Louis Vuitton purse is $300, we like, whoa, that's that's a good buy. But now when we're looking at some of these quality companies go on sale, I feel like we tend to run. So could you talk about like the investor mindset and the millionaire mindset that people need to be in order to acquire wealth and to purchase some of these assets while there's quote unquote blood in the street?
Right. Yeah. My mentality is I want you all to think with the long haul in mind, that if you're buying at a discount, that this is a gift. So the reality is the edge that we have over the big dog hedge funds and institutional investors is that we can invest for the long term. Like that's really the edge we have, is that we can buy and hold it for a while. So like think about it like this. Um Imagine, because a lot of times we think about just what's the quick fast play. So there is a lady that plays tennis. I believe that she's the GOAT. It looks like she just hung it up. Serena Williams.
Yes.
So she's been playing tennis for over 2 decades. and was great for a really long time. Now imagine if Serena was a stock and you bought her you bought stock in the entity that is Serena Williams after 2 years of her playing tennis, and then you sold the stock in her 3 years later. How you would feel today looking at what her career was and how she became literally the greatest.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like the reality is the best tends to continue to be great over time. So I want us to get out of this mentality of, oh my goodness, in the short term, things are down, and say, man, let me look at it as an opportunity to actually get a little bit more for less money. Or if I've got the same amount of money that I can put towards it, whether it's a few $100s or maybe even a few thousand, whatever your setup is, that it goes further when the market is pulling down. So these are the times we want to really be looking to buy when things are falling, and get it out of our mind of the quick play. Say, hey, no, no, I'm in for the long haul. I want to buy Serena for the long haul. Imagine buying Beyonce when she was with Destiny's Child. Like, she still was a star,
Right.
but then look what she's become over all of this time. That's the way I want us all to think about this is, okay, get out of our mind the quick play. You want generational wealth? Okay, let's look to hold it for a generation.
Yes, I love that. I love that because um, one of the quotes that changed the way I look at investing was by Warren Buffett. And if you don't know who Warren Buffett is and you're an investor, you're basically asleep, right? Um, he said, "You make your money." He said, "Wall Street makes their money on activity, meaning trading in and out of stocks. You make your money on inactivity, meaning buying a quality company and holding it for the long term." Right? That doesn't mean never sell a stock, but what that means is when you are looking and evaluating on getting into a deal, you want to make sure you are evaluating and buying this stock as if you're going to hold it for a generation. If you think like that, you would do a lot better at your investing and you would buy better companies because you wouldn't be in a trader mindset thinking about what's hot right now. You would think about what's going to be hot in 10, 20 years, right?
Mhm.
What are the companies that are innovating that has technology that are so integrated in our life that they are going to be relevant in 15 and 20 years? Now, let me ask you about this specific stock. Let me see what your thoughts on this stock. Now,
Okay, go
a
ahead.
lot of people over the pandemic was clowning me, saying, "Man, you stupid, man, you missed out on this stock." And the stock that I missed out on, quote unquote, was Peloton. Now, I didn't get into Peloton, right?
Okay.
Now, before the pandemic, I was looking at Peloton and I'm like, okay, it's really a equipment company to me. There's
Uh-huh.
I didn't really get the technology play,
Uh-huh.
right? And then when the pandemic happened, Peloton shot up. I mean, everybody was buying these $2,000-3,000 pieces of equipment, putting them at their home, right?
Right.
Now that we're back to reality, and Joe Biden even got on the news during the interview and said COVID is over, whether you want to believe that or not. And I always encourage everyone to stay safe with you and your family. But the president of the United States got on here and said COVID is over. So when you look at that, and you look at a company like Peloton and they're down, I believe their stock is down. I'm not exaggerating. I think they're down about 85%. I'm literally
Yeah.
not exaggerating. When you look at a company like that, what do you say to somebody who probably lost their shirt and their whole investment in a company like Peloton was that was a good stock at the moment and a good trade at the moment, but long term is probably not going to be the best investment you could have made during the pandemic.
Yeah, Peloton was more of a trade. And yeah, you're right. I mean, it's down over 70% year to date, and last year it's down a touch over 90%, which, man,
Mm.
that's incredibly hard to do. Goodness gracious. Um but the thing is they didn't really have anything proprietary. Like I remember I actually talked to a friend, and he had told me, like, even like when I was looking at it, I'm like, okay, I understand why it's shooting up because when we were in the pandemic, it was like, oh man, it was kind of all the craze, everybody was home. Um, but I remember I talked with a friend, and I won't say his full name, I'd say his first name. His name was Mike. Um, and this brother Mike, he's like, man, yeah, I didn't actually buy the bike. He said what he did was he got like a cheaper bike and just got the program instead
Yeah,
and just used the program with a cheaper bike. And he said, oh, yeah, and it's perfect. And I remember when he told me that, I'm like, yo, they have no edge. Y-
zero.
y- Zero. I'm like, forget about the pandemic. You know what I mean? Like, which that'll present its own challenges once people want to get out of their house and go into the gym and feel, more comfortable around other people. But I'm like, just in general, they just don't have an edge to keep out uh, competitors. So yeah, no, I'm not a fan. I didn't buy any of it. I'm thankful to say for those who did, I'm very sorry and sad to hear that. Hopefully, you got out of there already. If you haven't and are waiting for the bounce back, um, it doesn't look good that bounce back is gonna come. I'll just say that. But you do your own research, your own due diligence with your funds. I personally would cut my losses if it were my money, but that's just me.
Now that's a good way to transition into my next question when it comes to trading, right, or investing in general in the market. When do you make that trade? When do you take that loss? Like, at what percentage does a person sit back and say, I'm gonna just take this L, or I'm going to ride it out? Like, what's the psychology behind that? Because you can always make an argument that I'm in this for the long haul, or you can make an argument that I made a terrible investment, I made a bad analysis, and I'm cutting my losses and moving on to another stock. Because where you lose it does not necessarily have to be where you make it.
Right,
Basically saying, if I lose my money in Peloton, I don't have to make that money back in Peloton. I can go make it in Microsoft.
right,
Right. So
right.
what's your thoughts on that? Because as an investor, I'm sure you have woke up in the red before,
Mhm. Oh yeah,
right?
for sure.
We all have, and you have to make a decision to stomach that or to take the loss.
Yeah.
Um, so what's your philosophy on that as an investor?
Yeah. So just in general, for most people, I would just make the case that you just shouldn't trade at all. You know what I mean? 90% of people lose money. Like if you really, if I'm gonna just keep it a buck for the overwhelming majority of people who are listening to this, you probably should just buy an index fund slash mutual fund that has a low cost and just dollar cost average into that thing every month and not think about it. Or you can set it up weekly, bi-monthly, but just some kind of regulated, regular frequency, and just not really have to pay attention to this stuff. Um, I'd argue for the long haul type of things. Something that I've thought was a good kind of way to think about it is to say, if your family's life depended on it, like if you're a parent, you got kids, or if it's your parents or siblings, whatever setup is, your partner, whatever. Um, if your loved one's life depended on this company making money, do you feel confident in putting your money there?
Mm,
because that'll cut through a lot of the noise of, oh man, well, it's the hot meme stock that everybody's talking about. Which let me just keep it a buck with y'all, okay? If you're just hearing about it, the train probably done left, man. You missed it.
mm,
You know what I mean? Like when grandma hitting you up about Dogecoin, bruh, I'm sorry. You missed it. It's too late. The wave has passed. Um, so I think that that's a just a better way of thinking about it, is to say, where do I have super high conviction? Not, hey, someone just randomly told me about this. I saw it on social media. Um, because then it's gonna be virtually impossible for you to know when to get out, because you don't have any parameters set. You just kind of bought it, and hope was your strategy. I hope it goes up. Well, it's got to go up because it's come so far down. That's why I straight up said it. And for some of y'all, I have made you money slash saved you money in this by telling you, don't touch Snap. Let that joint go. Peloton, I'm telling you, just leave it alone. The risk ain't worth it. You're welcome. You know what I'm saying? Like, um, so those would be things of, in my mind, if you are talking about someone who's more of a trader, then you need to have a healthy risk to reward ratio. You're looking at risking $1 to make like 11 or 10. Um, you want to have a predetermined uh, loss that you're willing to take,
mhm.
because what good does it do you if you make $100 on 4 trades each, and then on the fifth you lose 5,000?
Right.
Like you quote unquote won 4 out of the 5, but you lost money. And for those who are wondering on the math, it means you made $400 and you lost 5 grand, so you're in the hole $4,600. So you've got to have a strategy and a plan set up front of, this is what I'm willing to lose, this is what I'm willing to risk to win. And yes, you would want your risk to reward ratio to be such that you have a greater likelihood or chance of actually winning. But again, I'm going to say this again: most people shouldn't be trading, because most people do not make money doing it.
Yeah, that's really important. I want to transition into more like small business,
Yep.
because you are an investor. You do invest in different companies, private equity, venture capital, things like that. So during this time that the public markets are, going haywire, how does that affect a private investor or the private market? Because a lot of the people who are watching are small business owners. They may be looking to raise capital and things like that. While the economy is down, would you tell a small business owner to not go out and try to raise capital, because their company, they're probably going to raise capital at a lot lower valuation today than they would have, a year ago? So what are you telling to the small business owner who's looking to raise some additional capital to grow their business during this time?
So the way I would encourage you to think is really lock in on your business. Uh, really look to solve big problems with your business, because here's the beauty of it. And so we going I'm gonna give y'all something different. Y'all ain't know what y'all was in for today. Um, is that in every recession there's going to be innovation and incredible companies and opportunity that is going to come out of it. So even though there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of opportunity. And so I'm going to give you, so the Chinese word for crisis is called wei ji. And it's made up of two words put together into one. So the first half of it is wei, is wei, and then ji. Um, and the wei means danger, and the G means opportunity. So literally, the Chinese word for crisis is the combination of danger and opportunity combined.
Mm.
So, at you as a small business owner, you want to be mindful of the danger of, putting yourself in a stabilized position to make sure that your business is going to at minimum survive an economic downturn, but don't let the fear paralyze you from looking for the opportunity, because greatness will come out of this. So that's why I would say, when you're looking to expand and grow and potentially raise capital for your business, swing to solve big problems, because there are people out there such as myself who are looking for places to put capital where we think it can win. I literally talked to someone earlier today for the better part of an hour, and at one point he was discussing a private equity opportunity that he took with I'll keep it real loose here, like a generally security related company, and it's an incredible opportunity in the midst of all the craziness that's going on right now, and chaos and volatility. So don't play small, play big, solve big problems. Because if you solve big problems for a big group of people, there's a big bag waiting for you.
All right. So from an investor standpoint, looking at different companies, um, are you basically saying that investors aren't, depending on your idea, if your idea is big enough and if it solves enough problem, it really doesn't matter the what the economy is doing? Is that the mindset of an investor, someone who's looking to invest their money to get a return in the future, but are betting on big ideas to get a big return?
Yeah, because I mean, the way you've got to think about it is, money's just a tool. And for people who have a ton of it, they're looking for places to put it where it can grow. And if there's phenomenal ideas that are there, the money will go there. It'll find it. I want to say Uber came out of the last recession that we had, with the Great Recession and housing market crisis. Of They were just trying to solve a big problem, with people just being able to get around, and
Mm-hmm.
they did some ride sharing stuff, and boom, now it's Uber, and a lot of money was made, um, in that setup, and that was a private investment at that time, because it wasn't publicly traded. Um, so that's the mentality. Like, investors are looking for places to put money. I can just tell you that flatly. I know, because I'm personally doing it, of looking for opportunity to take calculated risks. And if you've got a good setup, you've got strong financials, you've got a strong business, and you've got an idea, or a problem that you are already currently solving, and you're looking for ways to solve it more at greater scale, man, you just never know who's out there, um, looking to pour capital into that.
All right, man. I love it. I love it. Guys, if you want to drop your questions down below, we're going to take a couple questions before we wrap up and get up off this thing. We're going to do this for about an hour, hour and a half or so. I don't want to hold my guy Steven up too long. He's dropping so many gems. Hey, listen, if you are enjoying this, make sure you please like the video so this information can get out to other individuals who are similar to yourself. So make sure you please like the video. I believe we're at 18 or 19 likes on there. Make sure you get that up. If you are enjoying it, please like and please subscribe. Um, Stephen, my question for you is, when you are looking at a business and you're looking at a business to grow, right? And you're looking at a business to scale, what are some red flags that small business owners should stay away from when they're communicating with investors, right? So what are some red flags, some things that would turn you off from an investment, um that would just make you walk away, even though it might turn out good? But what are some red flags or a checklist that you look at that if they don't check these 3 to 4 boxes, I'm not even I'm not even considering investing?
Yeah. So first off, are you making any money? But like we don't even have to get super complicated. Like, are you profitable? Are you actually making money? So I don't personally care that much about revenue. I mean, revenue is more for egos, man. I want to know, are you making money? Like, are you profiting? Like, once everything's all said and done. So I want to look at that. I want to look at what the profit margins actually are in the business, because higher profit margin businesses tend to be more recession resistant. They tend to just perform better over time. So, like, for instance, um, so if I juxtapose, or if I put Apple up against Netflix, you've got Apple, where people could be literally paying four figures for a phone, high margin business, across kind of all these different, devices, and their ecosystem of how they have stuff set up. I mean, Apple is more of a luxury type of brand,
Right,
um, in how they move. Um, so you've got a high margin business there, versus if I look at Netflix, and you've got people complaining about paying $15 a month to have access to multi billion dollars worth of movies and shows,
right,
where it's like, man, they're not making a super ton of money. And now people are upset. Oh man, now you want to introduce ads. Oh man, now you're limiting the amount of screens that we have, and now we got to pay more to have those screens. And I get it, because that used to be a different way, but the environment changed. And so they had a lot of debt, and they don't really have a high margin business model, um, that they're working off of. So yeah, I want to see, are you making money? What are your profit margins? Um, do you actually know your numbers? So so as an investor, I want to hear the numbers. I want to hear the data. So I'm cool with looking at slick brochures, or nice PowerPoint presentations. And I'm cool. Yeah, I'm like, hey man, this is great. I mean, all right, man. The marketing team is fire. You know what I mean, with how they put this together. But what are the actual numbers? Like, what is the business doing? So you should know your business inside and out. Now it's possible that an investor like me may ask you a question that you don't fully know the answer to, um, but you should be able to figure out the answer uh, soon. Is what I would say. So those are just some quick things. Um, that I look for in a business. And of course, another thing too. So this will sound fancy, but I'll break it down. Is total addressable market. Really, what that means is how many people can actually benefit from this. Like, is it something that can be spread out at scale, to where there's a lot of people looking for this type of service. So those would be some quick things that I personally would look for.
all right. Now let me ask you this question. We're talking, so when we're looking at small business or like ideas, do you more so invest in more established private equity deals and investments, or do you sometimes invest in someone with an idea that they're proving a concept? Because if they're not making money, like Instagram, for example, Instagram didn't make any money, but they sold for $1 billion, right? And they had millions and millions of users. They didn't necessarily really know how to monetize it yet. but going with the family of companies at Facebook, now known as Meta, it was probably Mark Zuckerberg's best decision as a CEO is to buy Instagram and YouTube. YouTube wasn't making any money when they got acquired by Google for billions of dollars. So, are you more so looking at more established companies when you're talking about these private equity deals that could potentially show a profit? Because there's a healthy balance between investing all of your profits back into your business or you're not making any money because the business model is flawed. So which one are you leaning towards?
Yeah, yeah. So and so if it's a business that they actually do make money, but they're just turning around and reinvesting it back into the business. I look at that differently than if they're just not actually making money at all. I would say I typically like to invest where there's a little bit of a proven track record where they've done some stuff, or maybe it could be a business where they're not all the way there yet making money, but the founder has experience with building a business that makes money. You know what I mean? Like they've done that in the past and they're working along a track to do that again. So that's something I would potentially look at as well. And even with some of the examples that you use, there still was a lot of value for like a YouTube as an example of just the average watch time
Yeah,
of people on the platform was really high, which ultimately was going to be good for advertising.
yeah.
And even today, I mean, like you just most people they'll just wait the 5 seconds and skip the ad, or maybe it'll give you two back to back for like 10 to 15 seconds. That you watch them until the ads are done, and then you consume the content that you set up to see. And plus, the other thing with YouTube that was good is from a demographic standpoint, they keep a younger demographic. So yes, you have mid to late or more seasoned age people, but you got little kids watching it too. They may be watching other kids play with toys, um, or what have you. You know what I mean? So like there are a lot of things about how the business is set up that made it attractive, and it was a great marriage of taking Google with this crazy powerful search engine and merging that into uh, merging YouTube into that. So even in that acquisition, there was clarity for why they were doing it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Hey, Steven Stack, man, I really appreciate you, bro. You already know we did this kind of on the whim.
Yeah,
I'm like, man, I might as well do a live stream tonight. I mean, nothing else to do, right?
right, right,
We
right,
might
right.
like you might as well do a live stream. I took care of business, looked over my portfolio, did that whole thing. And then I called you and you was looking over yours. So I'm like, wow,
Yeah,
this is a good idea to come on and just talk about the markets, and things like that. So we got the last question, and I'm gonna let you go.
okay.
This is a good one. Do you believe the Bank of America loan for minority first time buyers is a good opportunity, or is there an underlying catch? That's a good question.
Yeah, that is a good question. Um, I am I'm going to answer this honestly of that I'm at least a tad bit skeptical about it. I would like for it to be really good for us. And to be clear, the way the loans are set up, it's the like the zero down. It's not necessarily specifically for minorities. It's for people in minority communities. Um, so there are things about it that just make me a little skeptical to kind of reserve my judgment on it. Like I said, would like for it to be a good setup. But even now, I'm just looking at the dynamic of where some of these different real estate markets are, and I would hate to see us get put in a space where uh, we have some of our more vulnerable people in our community get into a property and get into a loan that they can't sustain, and now all of a sudden they're potentially having to foreclose, and then somebody else comes and swoops in and scoops it um, at a significantly reduced price, and we're in a bad space. So I'm just giving you my honest answer on that one. That's a good question.
Yeah, that is a good one. As a former mortgage banker, I would say, um, for one, that's a good point. You said they can't make it specifically for black people or minorities because you can't discriminate based on race. So what they could do is try to focus on specific areas, and those areas predominantly have um, a higher minority residents.
Right.
Um, the problem, and something people need to think about as well, is where was this program when interest rates was 2%?
That part.
Now interest rates are 6%, right?
Hmm.
Now it's all of these minority based programs. So you have to really look at it from that lens. Now, I'm not telling people not to get a house. However, you have to look at it from that perspective. You're buying a house and the market is still kind of inflated. It hasn't dropped back to normal because over the last 2 years, the housing market shot up. I mean, the same home that was 200,000 was 350, right? Like these houses shot up a lot. So you're
Yeah.
buying a more expensive home at a more expensive interest rate, right? And because you're in a minority community, quote unquote, a lot of these communities aren't giving you the same returns as other communities. So now you're also looking at the long term play on your money. So there's a lot of things that you got to look into. Now, if you're somebody and you're like, look, I just want to take this opportunity to buy a home and I feel like I can afford it, this is my one chance, and I'm all for taking risks, go for it. But if you're just looking at it from a calculated perspective and you're thinking about, well, I can stay in this area and get a regular traditional mortgage, or I can go in this area and get the minority based first time home buyer mortgage. You have to make a decision based on the logic and the money and where you want to be in 10 years, and not on just because somebody gave you a good sweet deal, something that sounds like a deal. Because Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Chase, these companies are in business to make money. They're not nonprofit organizations. So you have to ask yourself, where is the money being made? And I would say the money for sure is being made on the interest rate, and some type of back end fees or some type of fees that you may be overcharged for, but because you don't have to put any money down, you're more willing to pay higher fees because you're not taking money out of your pocket. So psychologically, you don't feel it. So that's my 2 cents on it as a former mortgage banker. Um, is to go into it skeptical, but if you go through into it skeptical and you really find a good deal, all means buy it.
Right. Right. No, I think you did a really good job of explaining that. And it's not shocking that we are on the same page about that. And obviously, we didn't know that question was coming. So, yeah.
Facts. All right, bro. I appreciate you, man. Anytime you want to come on and do this, you know the door is open. I'm gonna start doing these every Tuesday. So if you ever have a Tuesday in your pocket, at 8 o'clock that you wanted to come on and talk about something in the market that's exciting, the door is always open for you, bro.
Yeah. Nah, man. definitely appreciate that, and I think you can tell. If you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. I live this stuff. You know what I mean? I'm literally studying the market, paying attention. He literally hit me up today, so we were just vibing off of what was already known.
All right, and let people know how they can find you and stay in touch with you. People probably, you dropping gems, they want to stay tapped in with you.
Yeah, so I'm probably most active on Instagram. My handle, you should be able to see it on the screen. It's just at stacking with stack, which I always try to give this disclaimer. Don't worry, I'm not going to solicit you for money. I ain't going to ask you about your crypto trading or anything like that. So watch out for those scammers. But that's me. I'm active. I try to share stuff regularly, just to encourage people around finances. I actually have a website. It's just StephenLStack.com. Stephen with a V, Stack, Stack. So StephenLStack.com. But would love to see you all, and especially if you came through from the show, let me know, and I'll make sure to say what's good.
All right, bro. I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you.
Yeah, for sure, man. Appreciate you too, man. This was really good, really good.
All right. Peace.
Peace.
All right, guys. Listen, I need you. If you enjoy this, I need you to like and subscribe to the channel because I'm going to do this more often. I'm going to do this every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you enjoyed this, I need you to like, comment, and subscribe. But I also want to show you guys something that I've been working on that I think you guys would really, really benefit from. So give me a quick second here. I'm gonna show you guys something I've been working on. So give me a second. I can't even pull it up. That's weird. All right, give me a second to get it pulled up. All right, I'm going to share my screen with everyone. I'm going to share my screen with everyone. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. Put done when you are finished. Put done in the comments when you are finished. Like, comment, and subscribe. Put done in the comments when you are finished. Oh, they not even let me. They not even let me share my screen. That sucks. All right, whatever. I'm not gonna be able to. I'm not gonna be able to do it. They're not gonna allow me to do it. So I got another way I'm gonna do it. All right, guys, I appreciate you. I want to take a few questions while we got a couple of people on here. Let's take a few questions while we got a few people on here. So let's jump into it. Let's take a couple questions. If you guys have any questions about your business, about your brand, I'm here to assist you in regards to that. So if you got any questions about your business or your brand, make sure you drop it down below while I get this set up. Yeah, for some reason it's not letting me. All right, guys, it's not letting me for some reason. So I'm gonna just wrap it up here. Look, guys, I appreciate you. I love you. If you want to be notified, if you want to be notified when every time we go live, the link is in the bio. If you want to be notified every time we go live, the link is in the bio. I love you guys. I'll see you guys next week. We're doing this live every single Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Peace.